You are welcome to today's lesson. Today we are continuing our discussion on rigid motion, and the focus of our discussion is reflection. To be precise, reflection on the x-axis. Now let's look at our introduction. In our previous lesson, we learned about translation of a point or a figure through a distance in a given direction called translation vector. In today's lesson, we are going to learn about another form of transformation under rigid motion, which we call reflection. Now, what is reflection? Reflection is a movement of a point or a figure along a straight line through a distance perpendicular to the line. The image point is formed in the opposite direction of the line. Don't worry if you are not familiar with certain terms. Now let's use a picture to explain the whole concept of reflection. And so in this picture, we see a fine gentleman standing before a mirror. And so the gentleman himself represents what we call the object. And what appears on the mirror is what we are calling the image. Now the line we see here is what we call the mirror line. So when we say the mirror line is simply a line to represent the mirror. And this distance is perpendicular to the mirror line. And so we call it the object distance. And so the object distance is simply the distance between the object and the mirror line. This distance is also perpendicular to the mirror line. And we call it the image distance. So the image distance is also the distance between the image and the mirror line. Now let's look at the properties of reflection. The first property is that the distance of the object to the mirror line, which we call the object distance, is the same as the distance of the image to the mirror line, which we also call the image distance. What this implies is that in reflection, always the object distance must be equal to the image distance. Also, the image of the figure formed by reflection is oppositely congruent to the original figure. What that means is that the image produced from reflection is oppositely the same as the original figure, which is the object. And furthermore, the points on the mirror line are unchanged, meaning that the point on the mirror line remains the same. Now, what are the types of reflection? In today's lesson, we are going to look at the first type of reflection, which we call reflection in the x-axis. This can also be called as reflection in the line y equals 0. Example: draw the triangle ABC with vertices A, which is 2, 4. So that is point A, 2, 4. Point B is also given as 3, 7. And the point C is also given as 6, 7. Also, we have to draw the image triangle A1, B1, C1 of triangle ABC under a reflection in the x-axis. And lastly, we have to indicate the coordinates of the triangle A1, B1, C1, which is the new image we have. Now, since we are dealing with reflection, then I will need a graph sheet. And so on my graph sheet, I'm going to draw the x-axis and the y-axis. So what we see over here are the calibrations on the y-axis. And so I have the positive side and the negative side of the y-axis. Also, I also have the positive and the negative side of the x-axis. I am using a scale of 2 centimeters to 1 unit. So you can choose your own appropriate scale provided the scale is not given in the question. Remember, we were given certain points to plot. The first point was point A, which is 2, 4, point B, which is 3, 7, then point C, which is 6, 7. And so I'll plot the first point A, which is 2 on the x-axis, 4 on the y-axis. Point B, which is 3 on the x-axis, 7 on the y-axis. Then point C, which is 6 on the x-axis, 7 on the y-axis. Afterwards, we join the points together. So I'll join point A to B, I'll join point B to C, then A to C. And this forms a triangle ABC. Remember, in the question, we have to reflect the triangle ABC on the x-axis, which is reflection in the x-axis. So this x-axis is what we call the mirror line. Remember, I said the mirror line is a line that represents the mirror. And so since we are reflecting on the x-axis, the x-axis acts as the mirror line. So we'll pick the first point, point A, and move certain steps towards the mirror line. So let's count the number of steps. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So I moved 4 steps to get to the mirror line. In the same way, I'm going to move 4 steps away from the mirror line to produce the image point A1. So I'm going to move 1, 2, 3, 4. So the last point, which is point A1, gives us 2, -4. So in the same way, we'll go to the next point B and move towards the mirror line. So let's move 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And so I moved 7 steps to get to the mirror line. It means I have to move 7 steps away from the mirror line to produce the image point B1. So let's move 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So the last point becomes the point B1, which is 3, -7. Then I'll pick the last point, which is point C, then move towards the mirror line, which is reflection in the x-axis. So let's move 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And so I moved 7 steps to get to the mirror line. In the same way, we move 7 steps away. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So the last point becomes our point C1, which is 6, -7. And so I'll join the point A1 to B1, B1 to C1, then I'll join A1 to C1. And this produces the image triangle A1, B1, C1. Now let's take note. Remember that the first point given to us, which was point A, 2, 4, after reflection in the x-axis, produced an image point A1, which is 2, -4. Point B, which is 3, 7, also produced an image point B1, which is 3, -7. Then point C, which is 6, 7, also produced an image point C1, which is also 6, -7. Now you observe that the y-coordinate of the first point, which is point A, was a positive value, which is +4. Now after reflection, it became a negative value, which is -4. Let's pick the second point, which is point B. Its y-coordinate was a +7, and after reflection in the x-axis, it became -7. The last point, point C, its y-coordinate was a +7, and after reflection became -7. Now, in conclusion, anytime we have reflection in the x-axis, the y value is negated. And so, for instance, if I have a point A, which is xy, its image, which is point A1, becomes x negative y, so the y has been negated. If I have another point, point B, which is the same xy, its image point B1 will also become x negative y. Now what if I have C, point C, which is x negative y? What happens? You realize that since we are reflecting in the x-axis, the y-coordinate must be negated, and so we will negate the y-coordinate. But since the y-coordinate was already negative, negative multiplying negative will give you a positive value, and so C1 will now become xy. Now your assignment for the day. You are to draw a triangle PQR with vertices P, which is 2, 4, Q, which is 3, 7, and R, which is 6, 7. You are also to draw the image triangle P1, Q1, R1 of triangle PQR under a reflection in the x-axis. Then the last thing to do is you are to indicate the coordinates of the triangle P1, Q1, R1. Thank you for watching. See you in the next lesson.